Hi everyone, this is Dennis, your GRE instructor here. Welcome to GRE Talk with Test Prep Dad. Today I'm going to go over how to study for the GRE in 2 months. And look, it may sound impossible. It may sound really scary, given that even watching this video is a time out of a already busy day. But it is possible, I promise you that. So let's work through the different steps you'll want to take in order to make sure you're able to fully get this out of the way in the next 2 months that you have, okay? So step one, you have to start by taking a GRE practice test. You've got to know where you're starting from. It's going to be the baseline score. It's going to be what's going to really help you understand how to prioritize, how to set up your time in your study schedule, okay? And then once you have that baseline score, you have to do full research into knowing what you want your goals to be as well. Different programs have different goals, so you've got to really understand how many points are you from where you are today and where you want to be in 2 months, okay? Once you have that, step two is going to be to set up your study schedule. Now, this is so crucial, and why I say that is because, look, dad of 2 kids, some of you out there I'm sure have your families of your own, and even if you don't, your day by day is changing. If there's one thing I've learned, you make plans. Why even make those plans? Nothing ever is gonna happen the way you expect. But how you can try to prevent against it, or how you can counteract that, is by being flexible. A big way to be flexible is I always like to plan the big things first. And for you in your GRE journey, the big things are your practice tests, right? If you think about the experience you're gonna have 2 months from now on the real test, where the test is almost 4 hours long, you have to build up that same type of endurance in the time that you're working through this. You're not gonna get there day one, but take a look at your calendar over the next 2 months and really find the times where you can set aside to make sure you can take that full-length practice test. Those are your anchor points. Those are the markers of where you need to be, and that will help give you checkpoints in terms of how you're progressing, how many points are you gaining, and how close are you getting to the goal score that you're shooting for, okay? The next step is gonna be to develop it over time. Your study plan is gonna change from one test to another, because you're going to need to understand what areas are you already strong at and what areas are you going to need to get better in the time that you have. And so here's what a sample study plan would look like, right? Like, say your baseline score is in the 140s for quant, in the 140s for verbal, a solid start to everything that you're doing, and you have, well, for today's purpose, 2 months before your test. In week 1, you would definitely take that practice test and review, right? So that could take 4 hours for the practice test. Initially, you could cut out the essay, so that would save you an hour. You'd want to use that time though to really make sure you review, right? You want to put as much time as you can into really understanding how you did in that practice test. Now, when you review, that's gonna start revealing early on areas where, if you've ever been there, right? I know I have. Have you ever been on a practice test and you're like, I know I could do this question if I had just put some time into maybe reviewing it right before I took this test? You're gonna have a lot of those moments. And so initially, you wanna spend 4 days out of the week spending, I would say an hour and a half is a great period of time to total about 6 hours during that week. And I know that's a lot to ask, but if you use that time to really hone in on your fundamentals, on your just the areas that you saw at some point in your life, and now it's creeping back, right? Like, if you told yourself you would never use this math again, well, here it is. Karma can be mean sometimes, right? But you have this material in front of you, and the way to tackle it is by saying, hey, I'm gonna tackle it head on, right? I just wanna see it. I just wanna see how much of it comes back, how much of it is like riding a bicycle, and how much of it am I gonna really need to spend additional time with, right? Now, this doesn't mean you're out there Googling algebra or formulas that you may or may not know, you can really pick up this material by practicing GRE-like questions, right? So for example, I tell my students all the time, don't think to yourself, oh, all I gotta do is memorize this percentage formula and I'm gonna be golden on test day. No way, right? Because you need to learn how to apply that formula. You need to understand how the GRE is going to challenge you in regards to the formula. What exactly do you need to know, right? And so for practice purposes, have a cheat sheet, right? Have all the information you would need on the test in front of you. And if you use it enough, you will find that over time, your brain says to itself or to you, or I guess that's how the conversation worked, but it would say something like, oh, Dennis needs this, right? He needs this in his life. And so automatically, your long-term memory will soak it up. So don't put the focus on memorizing all these formulas. Put the focus rather on how am I going to use it. This is not a math test. This is a decision-making exam, okay? And so that requires consistent and at times repetitive practice, okay? So week 2 could be 5 days of studying, another 1.5 hours per day. That's 7.5 hours in a week, right? You do the same thing in week 3. Right? And then what happens week 4? You've got a huge conference at work, or there are finals, or your kid has a birthday party that you got to plan and attend. Either way, maybe you give yourself some flexibility to say, look, this week it's just not going to happen. Right? Game of Thrones is starting up again. It's going to be real tough for me to be able to put this time out there. Regardless, then maybe this week you spend only 2 days studying at 1 hour per day. The point is, that's okay, right? The point is you shouldn't feel like you're failing if you're not able to be, practicing every single day. Because the reality is, again, it is super tough to be able to make that time every single day. We've all been there. It's challenging. But I will tell you this, the more consistent you can be, and the more questions you can tackle, the more realistic GRE-like questions you can tackle and then learn from, right? And what I mean by that is, look, one thing you've got to get out of the way right now, if you feel this way, is I know it can feel kind of not great to get questions wrong, especially when you know how much a GRE counts. But I'll tell you this right now. Getting questions wrong is the way to beat this test. In fact, I want you to get questions wrong. I want you to go out there and push yourself. Find tests that will actually adapt to you, just like the real GRE does, right? Find material that you're going to be able to turn and work on areas that are maybe a little bit out of your reach, right? Great. I want you to handle all the things you can do today, but you really got to push yourself if you're going to find those things that you're not good at today, but are going to be good at 2 months from now. Okay? And that's so important. So let me just, give you a little e-hug for a second and say, look, don't be discouraged when things don't go your way in practice. Honestly, that's what you want, right? Because you're gonna learn from that. You're gonna be able to turn that into teachable moments, into learning moments. You're gonna take that and be able to say, okay, how am I going to do this different the next time I see it? Okay, so then week 5, you had the work conference or whatever it is, you're back in the game. Take a practice test. See how far you've come, all right? And do the same thing, full review. Make sure you understand, and like I said, pay particular close attention to the ones you got wrong, because those are the ones that are gonna really help you gain on where you are currently standing, okay? And then, I'll give you a little pro tip for a second. Not only do I want you to focus on the ones you got wrong, save them. And save them for a week later or 2 weeks later when you've all but just forgotten about them. Come back to the ones you did wrong, maybe when you first started, and see how much you've grown, okay? Then for another 4 days of studying, 1.5 hours per day. Do the same thing in week 6. Now it's time to turn the gas up, right? Practice, test, and review. Make sure you invest that time. 4 days, really hone in on the areas where you still need to improve. It's now week 7, right? Same thing, practice tests and review. And I'll give you something, I'll throw something out there. It's week 7. We're almost to the finish line. It's gonna be real tough to really make drastic changes in your knowledge over the next 2 weeks. And so I'll say this is a really nice pivot point where I want you to celebrate and say, I've done a lot of work for 7 weeks now. I know what I'm good at. So take some extra time to focus on the areas and particularly your strengths, because your strengths are what's gonna get you the score you're looking for on test day, right? And so week 8, when you take that final practice test, say to yourself, look, I've come this far. I know my limitations. I know what I'm capable of. I'll tell you this, if you can limit silly mistakes on test day, you will be very happy with your score. So at this point, focus on your strengths. You know what you're capable of. Get in there. Don't get into this zone where you need to get every question right. Understand that some are within your reach, some are not. Handle your business, all right? And then, day before the GRE, you do nothing, okay? You take a break, you do whatever you need to do. You watch your favorite Disney movie, whatever the case is. I know, coming from Test Prep Dad, that might seem like Anyway, so all in all, 2 months, you've got total study time of just under 80 hours. You've got 5 practice tests that you're gonna really let yourself understand how you're going through this. And look, all of these resources are available to you. Free GRE practice tests, a sample study plan. Check out these links in the video subscription and check them out as soon as you can. Because if you've only got 2 months to prep, you've got to start right now. And yep, procrastinators, I'm looking at you. All right, so that's it for today from Test Prep Dad. If you have any questions, please ask in the comment below, or you can find me at my @TestPrepDad handle on Instagram or Twitter. Hey, subscribe. Check me out in the next GRE talk that we have. Let's crush the GRE together.